Hi, this is Book Chat with You. I'm Matt Fernandez, and in this and most every episode, I would like to chat with you about literature. For now, I'm focusing on short stories. I'm looking at another story from this collection, The Story and Its Reader by Ann Charters. The story we're looking at today is by Amy Tan, Two Kinds. I was looking for a different author here, and I encountered this story. The reason we're looking at this one is because I kind of need to look at it for a college course anyways. This story, Two Kinds, is also featured in her novel, Joy Luck Club. I have not read Joy Luck Club. The title, Joy Luck Club, is in the story several times. The story, Two Kinds, is about a little girl, about 9 years old, named Jingmei Wu. Now, in China, the surname would go first, so Wu Jingmei, I believe. Now, they are recent U.S. immigrants to the U.S. The story was published in 1989. And in this story, I'll try to summarize it first. Her mother believes that just about anything is possible inside the U.S. For a short period, her mind goes into a place about hoping her daughter is a prodigy. And that in hoping that her daughter's a prodigy, that they can go skip some of the hard work. That she gives up on that. And she ends up settling with the piano. She kind of settles on the piano because her daughter was a bit brave to say, "Mom, why are you making fun of this girl kind of on TV, playing the piano?" And then her mom gets her a piano. And it's like, well, who's going to teach her the piano or whatever? And then the person who teaches her is their neighbor. Her mother cleans houses for a living. I mean, her father is a bit in the story, but the whole story is centered around the mother-daughter relations, right? So from there, her mother cleans one of the neighbor's apartments, in exchange for the neighbor to give their daughter piano lessons. The thing about it is that this neighbor is deaf. How deaf? Deaf enough. And he's got some trouble with his eyes. How much trouble with his eyes? It's enough that he cannot hear the notes she's playing, and he kind of misses which key she's playing. So the daughter, she just wants to be an everyday girl. And maybe I should save commentary till the end, but I do think it's a bit reflective to go from living in China, where I literally have a student who earlier we look at Harry Potter together, but this kid has over 30 hours of extracurriculars after school, over 30 hours of extracurriculars outside of school every week. I mean, 8 of these are fencing. But aside from that, an insane amount of extracurriculars. So when you take a kid from a country such as China, you plop them in the US, where a kid maybe only has 4 or 5 hours or something of extracurricular outside of school. I don't know how it is nowadays. I've been in China for way too long. But it's nowhere near what it is in China. And then you put them there, and they just want to be a normal kid, and they want to play Xbox, and they want to go outside and play. They want to ride bikes, and they want to play board games, And so in the story, the guy, her teacher, she calls her, as she's given him a nickname, Old Chong, and he is always doing a bit of a symphony in his head. She could see his fingers moving. So she's kind of learned a little bit with his poor eyesight to just keep fluidly playing the notes, even when she makes a mistake. So it's kind of I imagine it's like this with an instrument. I imagine it's also like this with martial arts. I mean, when I've done it, at least, if you just keep fluidly moving with the martial arts, you kind of just keep doing it. But don't stop yourself. Don't think, oh, I freezed in this motion, and then just try to self-correct. No, just keep going for it, and maybe it's not seen. At least he doesn't see it. Well, their church is going to have a talent show. They go to the talent show, and she kind of messes up. But, I mean, I could read this about 10 times and try to get every comma correct, every little point, but nevertheless with her mistake, which she does make a mistake, but she sees later on in life that though her mom starts to make her play the piano again, and there's quite a bit of tension there, right? The daughter even tells her mother, "Well, I wish that I wasn't alive just like your previous daughters," because I guess her mother had previously had, with a previous husband, two daughters, twins, and they both died at a young age. Well, at the end of the story, after the mother's passed away, and because this story, just like Sunny's Blues, inside the same collection, there's a hard line which shows like sub chapters, even though these are just short story collection. And then it's kind of like reminiscing, looking back in the past. She's going to get a tuner to tune the piano, not to ever play it. It's just for sentimental reasons. And then she looks at the book of the various songs, and she sees that she was supposed to be playing pleading child, and somebody else is supposed to be playing perfectly contented at the same time. But she was just playing one half of the song, not both. So this title, two kinds of what? Two kinds of, the mother says there's two kinds of daughters, one who listens, one who doesn't. There's two people here. There's the two different kinds of songs and the melodies that are supposed to be playing at the same time, and they're supposed to partner together, you know, and could be quite rough, it could be quite rough, with my children here in this country, because just the mentality that people have, the kids are always busy having to do something. I think that maybe some parents can learn from that in the US, but they take it to an extreme here. Always keeping children busy, always keeping them busy. Okay, well, as almost always, I'm going to show some of the story here on the right. So I'm going to read a bit from, at least in this edition, the first and second page, which is page 784 and 785. Okay, so I'm going to show it here on my right. Two Kinds, 1989. My mother believed you could be anything you wanted to be in America. You could open a restaurant. You could work for the government and get good retirement. You could buy a house with almost no money down. You could become rich. You could become instantly famous. Of course, you could be a prodigy too, my mother told me when I was 9. You can be best anything. What does Aunt Lindo know? Her daughter, she's only best tricky. America was where all the mothers' hopes lay. She had come here in 1949 after losing everything in China. Her mother and father, her family home, her first husband, and 2 daughters, twin baby girls. But she never looked back with regret. There were so many ways for things to get better. As I look at this, I kind of wonder, in 1989, did the U.S. seem like such a place of promise? I wonder how many people the U.S. seems like a place of promise now. Honestly, I don't know, and it terrifies me. A lot of these things really, really do terrify me, a lot. And I will see soon. I've been in China for way too long. But what I could say, at least for a foreigner moving to China, you could open a restaurant. You probably cannot work for the government, not of any job that I know of, probably not. You cannot buy a house. You need at least a green card, which are damn near impossible to get. And yeah, could you become famous in certain ways? Yeah. Yeah, on these kind of TikToks and these type of things. Yeah, you can make a name for yourself, but you can't really make money in a sense. You only have one job with a Z visa. Okay, I'll continue. We didn't immediately pick the right kind of prodigy. At first, my mother thought I would be a Chinese Shirley Temple. We'd watch Shirley's old movies on TV as though they were training films. My mother would poke my arm and say, Nikan, you watch. That's what it means. Ni, you, kan, look, or see, watch. And I would see Shirley tapping her feet or singing a sailor song or pursing her lips into a very round O while saying, oh my goodness. Nikan, my mother said, as Shirley's eyes flooded with tears. You already know how. You don't need talent for crying. Soon after my mom got this idea about Shirley Temple, she took me to a beauty training school in Mission District, and she put me in the hands of a student who could barely hold the scissors without shaking. Instead of getting my big fat curls, I emerged with an uneven mess of crinkly black fuzz. My mother dragged me off to the bathroom and tried to wet down my hair. You look like Negro Chinese, she lamented, as if I'd done this on purpose. I always think this kind of thing is kind of cruel of some parents. They act as if their children are somehow the ones to make a mistake on purpose, even if somebody did it to them or something, or even if a kid did something. This is not what happened here, but it's how old's the character here? 9, 10 years old? It starts off and it says, she's 9. With my son who's 4, if he does something, I'm not gonna scold him. I'm gonna, okay. The instructor of the beauty training school had to lop off these soggy clumps to make my hair even again. Peter Pan is very popular these days, the instructor assured my mother. Now I had the hair the length of a boy's, with straight across bangs that hung at 2 slant inches above my brow. I liked the haircut, and it made me actually look forward to my future fame. In fact, in the beginning, I was just as excited as my mother, even more so. I just realized as I keep re-recording this, and I read this story about 4 or 5 times now to make this video, I kind of wonder if part of the hesitation to cut her hair right, I don't know, maybe just the student, that's just how the student is, but there's a tiny thought of like Chinese hair being a bit different than like, I don't know, Caucasian hair or something, and just like messed it up. There's also a thing here that they're in the US, but some Chinese girls at like certain ages, they might have short hair sometimes just because it's like you don't need to focus about your hair. You can just focus on your schoolwork. Okay, I'll kind of skip ahead because this idea kind of goes on for a bit. So here on page 785. But sometimes the prodigy in me became impatient. If you don't hurry up and get me out of here, I'm disappearing for good, it warned, and you'll always be nothing. Every night after dinner, my mother and I would sit at the formica table and she would present new tests, taking her examples from stories of amazing children she had read in Ripley's Believe It or Not, or Good Housekeeping, Reader's Digest, and a dozen other magazines she kept in a pile in our bathroom. My mother got these magazines for people whose houses she cleaned. And since she cleaned many houses each week, we had a great assortment. She would look through all of them, searching for stories about remarkable children. The first night, she brought up a story about a 3-year-old who knew the capitals of all the states and even most of the European countries. A teacher was quoted as saying the little boy could also pronounce the names of the 2 foreign cities correctly. What is the capital of Finland? My mother asked me, looking at the magazine story. All I knew was the capital of California because Sacramento was the name of the street we lived on in Chinatown. Nairobi, I guessed, saying the most forward word I could think of. She checked to see if it was possibly one way to pronounce Helsinki before showing me the answer. So in a sense, her mom is testing her on things she doesn't quite know herself. And that's what I could find sometimes interesting about like being an English teacher. Like it's like, how often do these parents know or not know English? My view has softened a bit where sometimes you meet a parent who's like really fluent in English and it's like, well, I'm glad I have a job, but you can teach your kid English too, right? But now having a kid who's 4 years old, I can kind of like get it. I don't seem to be able to teach him anything, so I can sort of get it. But that maybe this recording's long enough. I think I could sort of go on there's plenty in the story to discuss. There's a lot here. But with that, down below, I will include a PDF, a link to the story, and a link to a YouTube reading of the story. So it's kind of interesting, they want you to buy these books when you're in college, but at this rate, if you were to buy this book, if there's like a 20th edition of this one by now, maybe if somebody didn't buy this book and you just see how many of these stories are just like, already online by other university websites, PDF links from other websites. So take it easy, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you later. Bye.